Pity about poor Catherine, though. Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock.
So, I was at a party the other night. I was having a drink, dancing, busting some moves, enjoying the music and the company of my lovely girlfriend. Having a good time, you know? But then, all of a sudden, I was hit with the following thought. Dude, what if I die? The beat of the drums became a pounding, muffled heartbeat that was far too loud, but I was the only one who could hear it. The people around me started moving in strange ways, as if there were missing frames. Whatever I was holding in my hand felt distant, as if I wasn't holding anything at all, like my hand wasn't even mine. And then I took another gulp, the sound came back, I could see colors again, and I moved on. I was back to enjoying my night. But this question, this feeling, it lingers. The fear of death. If you're lucky enough to not have been born or grown up in a war zone, death is something you're pretty used to seeing in a manufactured way.
Yeah! Stick around.
I mean, we do it a lot in video games and we see it all the time in movies, but there is a disconnect between fictional death and real death. So many of us live in cultures that simply deny the idea of death until it finally arrives. We are atrociously unprepared to deal with something that happens every single day, and until further notice, is going to happen to all of us. We are all going to die. It's the natural end of our brief journey in this world. So if you, like me, were unfortunate enough to have seen videos on the internet of people getting killed, or if you've seen any relatives or loved ones, a pet, or even a random person dying right in front of you, it's obviously very different from the video games or most of the movies we are used to enjoying. The real life events that are abstracted by works of art are a little theatrical. 1922's Nosferatu, directed by F.W. Murnau, is an adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, with the serial numbers filed off, but with enough personality, aesthetic sensibilities, and atmosphere that it became its own thing. That, of course, wasn't enough for the Stoker state, who wanted the fucking movie destroyed. But the original Nosferatu, like a good unkillable creature of the night, refused to die, and it became a classic of horror and expressionism. In 1979, one of my favorite weirdos, Werner Herzog, released his own remake of Nosferatu.
After 47 years living here, I decided to move to Orlando to be closer to Disney World.
You see, all that originality that the 1922 film brought to the table made it far more interesting than later adaptations. And those original elements are exactly what Herzog enhanced in his remake. If the basis for your remake is better than what came after, you need to create something better than what came before. Don't get me wrong, the Bela Lugosi and Christopher Lee versions of Dracula are astounding and classics in their own right. But nothing feels quite like the Nosferatu films. And there is one scene that sells how unique this movie is. In Herzog's Nosferatu, Count Dracula moves to the city of Wismar in Germany. With him comes a legion of rats and the plague. Lucy Harker, one of the few people who has not got the plague, walks around the city witnessing the last moments of people who have succumbed to madness as much as they have succumbed to the disease. The people talk and feast, enjoying their last moments as their world is slowly consumed by the plague. Eyes are deep and lifeless, their skin unnaturally pale. They look oddly comfortable, and the food looks delicious, far more full of color and life than some of the people eating it. The morbidity of this line always gets me.
It's our last supper.
We've all caught the plague. We must enjoy each day that's left.
And then this happens. Just like that, they are dead. This is the most haunting death scene I have ever seen in a film, mostly because it is terrifyingly simple. What killed these people wasn't just the illness, it was the editing. Death arrives with a sudden cut. Cutting away from these people also cuts their lives away. And this is the absolute best way to show these deaths. If I fade the shot out and then fade it in with the rats, it sucks. If I dissolve between the people and the rats, it's okay, I guess, but not nearly as impactful. If I cut between something other than the rats, such as the mummies at the beginning of the film, or maybe the castle, no, it still doesn't work. If there is a jarring cut from the banquet to the rats, well, that's interesting in a different kind of haunting way, but the rats and the coffins are essential for this scene. Dracula's arrival is also Death's arrival, his eternal companion. And nothing demonstrates that better than cutting to the coffins covered in rats. It's an eerie image that signifies death's encroaching grasp. You don't need to see it happening because you already know it's there. You know it's coming. Jonathan! Herzog's Nosferatu is a film textured by loneliness. Count Dracula himself is a lonely creature who hates the fact that he is cursed to live forever as a monster.
Time is an abyss.
profound as 1,000 nights.
The scenes you see of him walking and skulking around the streets have this creepy, childlike aura of innocence, like he's discovering a new world to corrupt. It's almost as if this is Dracula's own way of carousing. Jonathan Harker is alone in his voyage to meet Dracula and also in his quest to stop him. And not only does he fail his quest, but he is also turned into a vampire and, in the end, gallops towards the cloudy horizon by himself, continuing the vampire's curse. Not the vampirism, but the curse of watching the world pass you by, withering away as you remain the same. Lucy is the one who most suffers with the loneliness in this film. She is the only able-bodied, able-minded individual who actually knows the cause of the plague. She knows that the threat they are facing is a vampire, but nobody's listening.
I know the reason for all this. Why don't you listen?
Even Van Helsing is completely useless and doesn't believe Lucy, thinking she's out of her mind. Where the fuck is Hugh Jackman when you need him? Lucy is actually a huge badass in this adaptation, more than I have ever seen in others.
Good night.
Herzog's Nosferatu makes the viewer carry this emptiness, this despair of living in a dark, oppressing vacuum. Lots of it is reminiscent of the original. It is directed many times as a silent film. These characters communicate more through action. Subtle or sudden moves, facial expressions, the exchange of piercing looks, or perhaps short and intimate moments, accompanied by the soundtrack and the beautiful vistas. You're just there, alone in a tunnel, with one of the most haunting versions of Count Dracula I have ever seen, and the music makes sure you're going to feel scared. The vampire is a parasite, a creature who leeches off the life source of the living to maintain their paradoxical state of unlife, remaining as a cursed undead, manipulating the environment and the society around it to further feed off of it however it sees fit. Dracula apparently wants Lucy to share his eternity with him, but he's a huge fucking virgin, so he keeps sucking on her neck until the sun is out. So not only does he kill Lucy, but he also dies. The Count surrenders to pleasure, to the illusion of happiness, and succumbs to it, because he doesn't really deserve it. It's hard to imagine myself as anything other than mortal. Dracula is a creature that has lost its touch with humanity, the nuances of living with others, and the perspective of looking at society as something more than prey. And, of course, the thought of one day, perhaps, finding an end to its life. Even though I'm still really scared of dying, I can find some peace in knowing I'm not going to become a monster. At least not after I die. One day I'll hopefully just rest in peace. As much as I have talked about loneliness throughout this video, I didn't mention how much the fear of death is a very lonely feeling. You're either scared of dying or you're scared of your loved ones dying, leaving you behind as they travel into the great unknown. That's something that the vampire as a concept takes advantage of. Similar to the zombie, the vampire is a creature that preys on the denial of death, and returns as something worse than whatever it was when it was alive. Dracula has degenerated down to his base instincts. He lives to feed. Humanity is his herd, but nobody's there for him. Being alive is a gift that Dracula has lost. And I don't mean this in a sappy, be happy you're alive kind of way. I mean that even though we should make peace with the end of our brief lives in this planet, it's still okay to be scared. It's okay to want the ones we love to stay with us and enjoy their companies. It's okay to fear loss. It's part of the process. This fear is what stops us from becoming monsters. What I mean by all of this is, fuck this guy.
No! It cannot be! Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
Thank you so much for watching and happy holidays. The new Nosferatu by Robert Eggers has not arrived in my country yet, it's still a couple of weeks away. So if you live in the US or anywhere else where the movie is already in theaters, tell me what you thought about it in the comments. This has been today's Dystopia. Have a happy new year, and I'll see you next time.